What's up, gang? This is Kash back with another video. Today we're going to be talking about how to know if you might be non-binary. Let's get it. Tip number 1, figure out what you aren't. So for me, I was very confused about my gender my whole life. I tried not to think about it, but when I did think about it, I was like, something feels weird, you know? So eventually I figured out that I probably wasn't a woman, even though I didn't settle on an identity that was still comforting for me. So you might think about how you feel about pronouns that are traditionally associated with people of your same sex assigned at birth, or you might feel like uncomfortable wearing certain clothes. Just try to figure out the things that you're not before you try to figure out what you are. That's very vague, but it worked for me. So tip number 2, what would you look like if there were no societal expectations placed upon you in terms of your gender? So I realized, okay, I'm not a woman, and then my brain immediately went to, am I a man? And I was like, I don't know, because if people were to look at me, I would want them to not be able to know whether I was a man or a woman. So I was like, okay, I wish that I could be androgynous to the point where like I had no giveaways for, you know, either man or woman. I just, like, people couldn't tell. Doing this exercise was helpful for me. Hopefully it can be helpful for you. If you're into, I don't know, drawing or something, you could like sketch some ideas or even write down on paper what you would want to look like, you know, if you didn't need surgery for anything, you just kind of snap your fingers and have it. Now, this is not to say like, oh, look, I wish I would be hot or whatever. It's more like, I wish I didn't have this body part, or I wish society would see me as blank, you know, that kind of thing, just in terms of your gender, because everyone has things that they don't like, but thanks, society. Tip number 3, try out pronouns. So if you think maybe you might be non-binary, say to your, you know, close friends, like, hey, could you guys call me this pronoun for a while? I'm trying it out. I want to see if it feels right. I know a lot of people say to do this, but it really is important, because you can kind of see when they use a certain pronoun, does it actually feel like they're talking about you, or does it feel like they're talking about someone else? That's how I feel when people call me she. I'm like, who? Oh, me. If the pronoun's not right, it might feel okay because it's different, but if you really think about it and try it out for, you know, a long enough period of time, you can probably realize that it's not right for you. Or if you get like a really good feeling every time someone uses it, like, hey, that might be right for you. And you know, just the way pronouns work, every pronoun is associated with a gender or lack thereof, or a combination of whatever. He is traditionally for men, she is traditionally for women, they, z, you know, those are more gender neutral. That's not the only pronouns, but if one of them feels right, then that probably could give you an indication maybe of like what identity is, like, feels good to you. Tip number 4. So this sounds weird, but just bear with me. Do you feel like drawn to, or like obsessed with, or protective of non-binary characters in shows or movies, or even people in real life that you know? Is there a show you watch and there's a non-binary character and you're like, oh my god, like, I'm obsessed, you know? That might be telling you something that you don't realize. Hi guys, this is Editing Kash, and I just realized that I did not give any examples for this, so let's get into it. When I was a kid, I was obsessed with Mrs. Doubtfire. Like, I watched that probably twice a week for no reason. If you don't know what that movie's about, Robin Williams basically gets divorced and loses custody of his kids, so he dresses up as like a 60-something-year-old English woman and works as a housekeeper and babysitter in his house so he can see his kids, and basically tricks his ex-wife and his kids and everyone. And I just remember being like, whoa, like no one thinks that he's a man. Like this is so cool. I know that movie is like problematic now, and like some of that stuff would never fly. But as a kid, I think just the gender non-conformity and his like okayness with dressing up as an elderly woman was just like cool for some reason. And like, not that that suggested that I was going to be non-binary, but I feel like the level of obsession that I had with it was like indicative of the type of like gender non-conformingness that I would later possess. Second of all, I was obsessed with the movie She Is the Man. I'm sure like probably most of you have seen that movie, but if you haven't, Amanda Bynes basically dresses up as her twin brother so that she could play soccer at his school because the girls' team at her school was cut. And nobody thought that she was a girl dressing up as a boy, and I thought that was so dope. And I'm like, whoa,
like, this is so cool.
And again, like, some of that stuff was problematic, but I really, really liked that movie, and I watched that and Mrs. Doubtfire like way too many times for my parents to not have realized something. I think when I was like really debating my, you know, gender identity, I thought back and I was like, I was too interested in movies about gender nonconformity to like not be trans, kind of. I know that none of those movies were about actual transgender people, and especially not non-binary people, but like I did not have a lot of options like in the 90s, like, you know, Gen Zers do today. There's like, you know, non-binary cartoon characters and like characters in different shows and stuff, but like we didn't have all that. Like, I'm old. When I think back, that's kind of an indication that I like definitely overlooked and everyone around me overlooked. Kind of take inventory of your life, friendships, maybe like, you know, interest in certain characters that you've had, and try to gain some insight from that. Tip number 5 is what makes you happy? What gives you euphoria? Euphoria is the feeling of like intense happiness, if you guys don't know. And gender dysphoria is what trans people feel that indicates to them that they're trans. It's feeling disconnected with your birth gender. So for a lot of non-binary people, they don't necessarily feel like the same type of dysphoria that binary trans people do. I have a lot of dysphoria, like biologically, medically, whatever. What gives me euphoria is when people call me Kash, when people use they pronouns, or if I'm coded as male in public. That makes me happy because at least I know I'm not, people don't think I'm cisgender, which makes me, you know, super excited. And I feel like in my chest, like a little like, oh, think about, you know, did you get a haircut that like just made you so happy and you love how you looked? When you wear a certain thing, do people, you know, call you a different pronoun than you used to, and that makes you happy? Like, it is important to think about what you're uncomfortable with inside yourself, but it's also very telling what makes you happy, because not all trans people experience dysphoria the same way. So there's not one like, if you feel like this, then you're this, you know. It's like more about molding your experience to you. So like, if certain things make you happy, you should do it. Everyone has things about their body that they don't like, and trans people have like an extreme version of that, which is dysphoria, because it feels wrong. For me, focusing on the negatives, like, obviously was helpful, but it made me very sad. So doing things that could make me happy was a good start, even if it didn't necessarily make me feel like I had an answer to all of my questions. I was like, you know what, I like wearing this type of clothing. I like having my hair like this. This makes me feel good. And then once I felt, you know, good enough to let myself explore options, I kind of settled on an identity, if that makes sense. I know everyone's different. Everyone has a different way of like coming to the conclusion. Some people go through a couple identities before they land on the right one. That's okay. I would say overall, just take inventory of your life and think about your childhood, think about certain things that had to do with being gendered that made you feel uncomfortable. And there's all kinds of ways of being non-binary. I feel very androgynous, which is just one way. You know, it's not the right way or anything like that, but take your time, there's no rush. I felt like I was transitioning too late because I was in my mid to late 20s. The first medical transition thing I've done was when I was 27. So I've always felt like, you know, I wasted so much time and it was too late for me, but you know, it's not. I'm not old by any means, you know. Take time to figure things out and try to just really do some introspection. That's really the only thing you can do to try to figure out who you are and what feels right for you. If you guys have any questions, let me know. If you have anything that I missed that was helpful to you, put them in the comments so other people can see. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. My Instagrams are down below. It'd be great if you would follow me, maybe order some shoes. That would be sick. Yeah, next video coming out next week will be about how to live as a non-binary person in today's society. All right, thanks. Peace.